Hello, Hockey World. How are you today? Today I'm presenting behind you. This is my day with the cup, so to speak. By cup I mean Hershey cup, which is right here. Behind here. This is the Hershey cup, which was won by my daughter's U14 soccer team this past weekend, out in Hershey, Pennsylvania, in the shadows of the Giant Center. Literally, like one part of the Giant Center was shadowing the field, and yeah, an amazing thing, and really just it's a nice big trophy. So we're getting it today, and I got to stop that right now.
And as you're stopping that, I'll say this is my day with the cup, and this is a cup of water.
There you go.
So,
Pause for a second. I'll
Yep.
fix this.
Okay.
Chrome. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. This stuff's Stop it.
The silence is deafening.
Yes, you can hear me even though I'm not doing anything. 1 second.
Well, I saw one of the
Here we go.
scarier sights in professional sports last night. Kevin, while X-fixing that, Brian Mitchell, a pitcher for the New York Yankees, got hit with a line drive, a comebacker, and was gushing blood. He had a towel over his head, and they walked him right off the field. Turned out, he had a cut and a nasal fracture, not a severe fracture, but a hairline fracture. But at the time, it was very, very scary. And I've seen so many incidents like that. I mean, not just hockey, but baseball. I remember back in the 80s, all-star shortstop for the Houston Astros, Dickie Don, got hit. I think it was by Mike Torres when Torres was pitching for the Mets and hit him like right underneath the bill of the cap. And Dickie Don's career was never the same.
Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, it's crazy when you think about the physics of baseball and now throwing, where the top relievers are all pushing 100 now, and because they only have to go one inning, so they just bring it all they got for an inning, and your reaction time, you got to make a determination whether it's a fastball or a breaking pitch, in basically under a second, and then your body has to react accordingly. Not only do you have to consider trying to hit it, but you're also, if it's inside, you got to get out of the way. So
Yeah, get hit by it.
And there's nothing that these pitchers can do really to protect themselves. There was a pitcher for the Mets, I think it was Alex Torres, who this year experimented with this padded hat that he was wearing. Because I think he got hit with a line drive a couple years ago, and it had padding. It looked almost more like a football helmet than it did a baseball cap. And the problem is with the incident that happened last night, it hit him in the face.
Yeah, I mean, your helmet. Yeah, what's the helmet going to do for you?
Yeah, I mean, it'll protect you from getting hit on the head, but our pitcher's going to wear face masks. I mean, that's not going to happen. So there's nothing they really.
Well, I mean, you can't rule it out.
Yeah.
I mean, you see it at the amateur level. In the amateur softball now, pitchers wear catcher-style face masks.
I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you think about it, I mean, it makes a lot of sense at the amateur level because you're out having fun. Why take a chance? It's not that big a deal to wear a catcher's mask. So
Interesting.
it makes sense. And the bat speed is also greater now. Like guys spend a lot of time working on their bat speed. So you're throwing the ball in at 95 miles an hour, and we talk about how scary it is for the batters to have to react in under a second. But now the pitchers are. Once the contact is made, the pitchers are facing the same situation because the bat speed now is incredible, and they're connecting on 100-mile-an-hour fastballs.
Oh yeah, it's nuts. It really is nuts, and I don't think there's anything you can do about it. I think it's just freaky, lucky, unlucky thing that happens to pitchers sometimes.
Well, what's interesting is they're trying to take the danger out of football and hockey. I mean, they don't, in hockey we don't allow hits that we did allow a few years ago, and in football you can't essentially now touch the quarterback.
Right.
They've made him off limits, and you can't even touch a wide receiver the way you could in the past. I mean, headshots, they have a zero tolerance for those, and you can't body check them right off the line unless he's at the line of scrimmage. But in baseball, that game has become more dangerers.
Oh yeah. No question. All right, there's my echo back. Let's get rid of the echo, and then we'll start the show. Here we are. Ready?
Yep.
I think we're good. It's the 18th, I'm going to say.
Correct.
Okay. And then I'll say it. Hello, Hockey World. It's Tuesday, August 18th, 2015.
I'm Michael Lagello.
I'm Kevin Allen of USA Today Sports.
And I'm Eklund, and you're watching the HockeyBuzzCast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes to you every Monday through Friday to give you your hockey fix for the middle of the day, give you a little break from work, and we're happy to do so. So today we're going to do something a little different because not a whole lot of hockey news happening right now. Danny Briere held his press conference today. We'll talk more about that tomorrow. We may even have Danny on tomorrow. But for today, what we wanted to do is I don't know if you guys remember the Hockey Digest, right? Hockey Digest is one of my favorite little magazines. It was a tiny, tiny magazine that came out. At the time, we had the Hockey News and the Hockey Digest, which was, I don't know, just slightly bigger than like an iPad mini maybe or something like that for those of you trying to compare it to something of today. And my favorite part of the Hockey Digest was the Who's Better thing that they would always do on the cover. They would always take two players, and it wasn't necessarily two players who were, you know, like it wasn't like Ovechkin or Crosby. It was just two players who were similar and very debatable as to who was better, and they would do a big story on this. And so I've sort of done it a couple times with blogs, and today we're going to do a little bit of a twist on who's better. We're going to do who's better, what's better, and what team is better. So basically, we're going to each pick a player comparison. We're going to each pick a team comparison, and then we're going to compare two things kind of randomly. So you know, that are similar, at least comparable, not like what's better, like, you know, a Snickers bar or Rite Aid deodorant. Something that's similar that you can compare in similar ways and don't have to think about. So yeah, let's start there. I was going to start today since I kind of sprung this on these guys at the last second and give them a little time to think here. And I'm going to start with two players, and usually, like I said, it's star players, but I wanted to start high today since this was the first time we were doing it. I mean, usually it's not necessarily star players, but I'm going to go with star players today. Okay, I'm going to go, who's better, Duncan Keith or I'm sorry, sorry, Drew Doughty. Sorry, Duncan Keith or Drew Doughty. There's my argument.
Well, because mine was going to be Drew Doughty versus Shea Weber. So.
Ooh, wow, we can continue that. That'll be good. That'll be good. Let's start with Duncan Keith versus Drew Doughty, and we will start with you, Mike.
Well, I mean, they both won multiple Stanley Cups. They're both Canadian Olympians, played on the last two Olympic teams. Right now, I mean, after the playoff that Duncan Keith had, averaging close to 30 minutes a game, I would have to say that Duncan Keith is probably the better of the two, but I don't want to slight Drew Doughty because, you know, Drew Doughty was arguably the best Canadian defenseman in both Olympics and has won 2 Stanley Cups. I mean, I think you can't go wrong with either one of them. I mean, to go with what Kevin was saying, I mean, at least with Shea Weber, there's a difference in style. He's more of a two-way defenseman, a bigger defenseman with a big shot, whereas I think the skill set of Keith and Doughty are pretty much very similar. They're both excellent skaters. They both jump into the offensive attack. I mean, right now, if you held a gun to my head, I would say Duncan Keith.
Duncan Keith, all right. Kevin, then we'll move on to the Shea Weber comparison, but let's start with Duncan Keith.
I'm actually going to disagree. Surprise, with Mike, and that's hard to do because Duncan Keith is such an exceptional defenseman, and you know, he was just fantastic is the word I would use, you know, during the playoffs. But you know, we're splitting hairs here. You know, we're talking about Gretzky and Lemieux and that type of comparison. And you know, my argument would be simply that you know, Doughty has some intangibles that I don't think Duncan does, and by that is I think. You know, Duncan Keith is a leader by what he does on the ice, but I think Doughty is a flag carrier. I think he's the type of guy that you know, can get something done on the bench, and I think he would be a greater offensive force if he wasn't playing for Sutter. I think he's a 3-zone defenseman. I think he does everything great. You know, I'm sort of tipping where I'm going with Weber and Doughty, but I believe Doughty is the best defenseman in the league right now. And not to take anything away from Keith because he's phenomenal, but I think Doughty is extraordinary. I watch a lot of Kings games, and he's just so visible. And wherever he's at, no matter what he's doing, with the puck, without the puck, we've all seen the plays he's made in the Stanley Cup Final. And the point that Mike just made, which I completely agree with, when Canada goes to war and these games are important, who's the guy they lean on? It's Drew Doughty.
That's where I am too with this. I mean, and that's when you see these guys playing on the same team. Drew Doughty.
These are so difficult because when you do that, you feel like you're sliding.
Oh yeah.
And he's phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, there's no way to slide. I mean, there's no doubt we're not sliding Duncan Keith here.
It's just a gut feeling, and I think if we had to pick a team and I had to choose one or the other, I would take Doughty. Plus, I still think Doughty has got growth as a defenseman coming. So he'd be my pick over Keith.
I'm with you there. I mean, I think that where Doughty excels, the two things I think Doughty does a little bit better than Keith, just a little, and they're really not. And there's a couple things that Keith do better too. That's why I kind of came up with this comparison. But the two things that I think that Doughty does better than Keith is I think Doughty is actually better. Actually gives away the puck a little bit less in his own zone. Keith doesn't give up puck a lot, but I have seen him get pressured and give up the puck. I have not really ever seen Doughty get pressured. I mean, I may have a couple times, but I've seen a couple times where Keith can get forechecked, and Keith will throw the puck around the boards, and every defenseman does that, of course, at some point. But Doughty seems to have a way of stepping away from the check and carrying it up. Where Keith tends to get rid of it a little bit quicker. I mean, Keith I think is faster than Doughty, speed-wise. I mean, and again, both are really fast players, but Keith, I'll take his speed over Doughty. I'll take Keith's leadership even a little bit over Doughty, but not a lot. Not just maybe in the locker room more than on the ice, where I think Doughty is probably the most valuable player. I mean, another one I debated, which we could also discuss at another time perhaps, is who's more valuable to the Kings, Doughty or Jonathan Quick. That's a tough one too because of all both are just absolutely vital to the LA Kings. Without either of those players, the LA Kings don't go, right? So, but.
The thing about Quick that's so interesting is, and I just wrote this in my preview, so it's still fresh in my mind. If Jonathan Quick's numbers were .898 save percentage and 2.94 goals against average, the Kings would still want him as their number one goalie.
Yes.
They have just unwavering faith in Quick to win the big game. It's not about numbers. Feeling that they have, it's his aggressiveness, and I know you're a goalie and you always just appreciate, he plays so far out of the blue paint, and that just fires up a team. Like when you have some goalies, when they do that, it scares their teammates. They want them to get back in that. Not with Quick. The more he plays out, the farther he plays out, the more confidence they seem to have in him.
No, and he's always reminds me so much of Mike Richter, who is another one of my favorite goalies. So the style of Quick and Richter is, if you watch YouTube videos of both of them on highlight films, you can watch some of Richter's old highlights. You would swear that you're seeing Jonathan Quick. They really play the same way. And I know Jonathan Quick grew up watching Mike Richter play.
But
outside of New York.
Jonathan Quick, compared to most of the goalies in the league right now, his style is unorthodox. And every time I watch him and I watch the reaction of his teammates to him and how he plays, it makes me flash back to Dominic Hasek with Buffalo, because now I think LA is a much better team surrounding Quick than the Sabres were with Hasek when they reached the Stanley Cup Final in '99. But his unorthodox play, I mean, Hasek was baffled opposing teams, the way he flopped around. It got in their minds more than anything. And I think
that's it, Mike. You're right. Sorry to interrupt, but unorthodox goalies, they have the ability to get into people's psyche more than other goalies. They just do. There's a certain thing about them that's almost magical, that you think that there's no way you can score on them. That with an orthodox goalie, you really sometimes think, okay, if we get enough pressure in front, we move the puck, get him moving side to side a little bit, there will be openings. I've seen Quick, and he does the other thing that goalies just do so well, that are successful. Quick he gets bigger as the games get bigger. He's better, and you'll see Quick at playing the Winnipeg Jets in December or whatever, and he'll look fair. He'll look average, but he knows when to. He just has that ability to find that other level. But this isn't about Jonathan Quick, so we should move on. But I really love talking about him. We should put him in. Maybe one of you guys could compare Jonathan Quick to somebody. But I think that he's outstanding. But I'm gonna break the tie, and I'm gonna go with Drew Doughty here over Duncan Keith, just because I think that I've seen him do some things that amaze me, and Drew Doughty has such a flair for the dramatic as a hockey player too. He's a guy who just knows when to come up big. Now Keith did that in the cup-winning game, no questions asked. Like he came up. That was a very Drew Doughty-like goal actually that Keith scored to win the cup for the Chicago Blackhawks. I mean that's the kind of goal that Doughty would score for the Kings. Sliding in like that off of a great feed. But I think at the end of the day, if I could take one or the other, I'm going to take Doughty. So yeah, he wins 2-1 in this battle. So now let me go to two teams. And since we talked about this the other day, and I wanted to kind of expound on it more, two teams I think that are very similar. And I wanted to get, we talked the other day about the Dallas Stars or the Philadelphia Flyers, and that's definitely a topic we debated a little bit already. So I'm going to stay away from that. But I'm going to go with what team is better, the Montreal Canadiens or the Calgary Flames? Two teams that met in 1986, obviously, for the Stanley Cup, have gone very different routes, and have very different kinds of teams right now, moving in similar directions. Both playoff teams. People thought you would think that Canadians are a little bit ahead of the Flames, or you would going into last year. People would have definitely picked the Canadians ahead of the Flames, but now I think the Flames may have evened that score to a degree. What are your thoughts, Kevin? Who's better, Calgary or Montreal?
Calgary. I don't think it's close, only because I really like the younger players that the Flames have coming. Monahan and Bennett, I think are give that team an advantage, and obviously Gaudreau is a difference maker and an exciting player. And that defense, even though Montreal has Subban and the very underappreciated Markov, who's in addition to having great regular statistics, when you look at his advanced statistics for last season in terms of puck possession, he was up there as well. But that Calgary defense, other than Nashville, who's better? What defense is better? So I just think Calgary, 7 in goal scoring last year, good young players that are only going to get better. Underappreciated players like Hudler on that team, a defense that in the Western Conference is second only to Nashville, and rates right up there. I love the Rangers' defense too, but it's right up there. So Montreal's a contending team, but they just don't have the goal scoring prowess that Calgary does. Calgary's just deeper right now.
Good, Mike.
Yeah, there's no tie breaking here. I have to agree with Calgary. I mean, first of all, they can score, and Montreal has trouble scoring. I mean, if it's not Max Pacioretty, if it's not Plekanec, they're in trouble. And Pacioretty is going to be out early this season with the off-season injury that he had. And it's not just Monahan, it's not just Hudler. There is some depth in scoring with Calgary, and they added Michael Frolik in free agency. Their defense, I think, blows Montreal's away, and I'm giving all the credit to Subban. He's a Norris Trophy winner. He's a quality player. Markov is a good veteran presence. Emelin's had some trouble over the last couple years fitting together with Michel Therrien. They add Petrie. He's not a bad defenseman. But the depth that Calgary has and the quality with Giordano, with Hamilton, with Brody, their defense, I think, is leaps and bounds better than Montreal. The great equalizer is Carey Price. I think Calgary's goaltending is okay. Montreal's is the best, or one of the best in the league. But I still think overall Calgary is a better team than Montreal, and it's a tougher conference as well.
It is a tougher conference, but I'm going to disagree with both of you on this one. Even though I'm not going to tiebreak, I'm going to throw my dissenting opinion in. I think that everyone's overestimating Calgary a little bit right now. I mean, I think they had a great year last year, better than anyone thought they would. They remind me a little bit of Colorado 2 years ago, where Colorado came in and had a really great year, and then last year Colorado took a step back to sort of a little bit of reality a little bit. I wouldn't be shocked if that happened to Calgary this year.
Yeah, but
that was the year before.
But
Right. I mean, 2 years. Well, yeah, yeah, that was the year before. But no, I think that Calgary. I mean, Calgary didn't make the playoffs 2 years ago, correct? So
correct. But
Calgary made the playoffs last year.
The difference is, Zach, is that Calgary did not have any major deductions from their roster. With Colorado, Paul Stastny left for St. Louis.
No, that's true.
And
I agree with that.
And they were depending more on Nathan McKinnon to carry the load as maybe the number 2 center. That didn't work out. He had a little bit of a sophomore slump. Whereas Calgary, they've added to the group that made the playoffs and played very well last year. They added Hamilton, they added Frolik, and they really didn't affect their roster. So I think they've just improved by adding to the already existing group.
But yeah, and what I was saying was a year and a half ago they started playing like this. And
yeah, that's true.
Remember, they were really strong in the second half of the season, right. And everybody was saying, well, yeah, but that's just an average, and they're going to fall back to earth. And instead, they got better. And and they have younger players. Like they're not doing this with 35-year-olds.
That's true.
And, like Monahan is going to be better, and Gaudreau is going to be better. Bennett's going to play a role as well, and Hamilton's going to get better. That group. But your point on the goaltending is. Price is the best goalie in the league. You can't win an MVP and a Vezina and not be considered the best, at least for last season. So, and the Calgary goaltending is the question mark we had on them. But I think it'll be strong enough that they'll be able to get by.
Yeah, we did discuss Calgary's goaltending the other day. So the way I think we should end any one of the team comparisons, and I still think, my last thing I'll say about Montreal is this. As you said many times, Kevin, this sport could be called goalie, and I do think that comes down to it. Not just the Price is there. He does have a good defense in front of him. PK Subban is probably as good as it maybe is or better than any defenseman on either team that we're talking about here. I mean, it's tough. I mean, there's the debatable things, but then I would put him up against anyone on Calgary's defense. I would take PK over any of them.
I would too, but Giordano was the favorite for the Norris when he went down last year.
No, that's for sure. And then Calgary played incredibly well without him, and that was hugely, I don't know, it gained a lot of respect in my mind. But at the same time, I just the way you should end these team things is okay. They're now going to play in a playoff series. Who's winning and how many games? Mike?
Well, I mean that's different because
goaltending
is exceptional.
I know it's a different question. It's a different question, but tell me who's winning.
I think it would go 7 games, and I would pick Calgary.
All right.
I might take Montreal because of the goaltending, but
yeah.
But it's going to be a tight series to be sure. And to me, what it comes down to is like where will Galchenyuk be this season? Right. Like if he takes a step in their development, because like Plekanec is one of the most consistent players in the game today. Like you can pretty much forecast what he's going to have statistically, and he hits those numbers. And Pacioretty is an exceptional player, and Mike mentioned that he's injured, but I've seen reports that they're now expecting him to be back, early, and he might be ready at the start of the season or very quick into the season. So, if they got a couple of breaks, who knows? But Markov is older now as well, and here's the question you have to ask about the goaltending: can Price possibly be as good as he was last season?
No.
It's hard to maintain that level. He's a great goalie. I'm not saying that, but it's like baseball pitchers. You can identify who the great pitchers are, but you don't know from season to season whether they're going to win 15 games, 18 games, 20 games, or 13 games. It fluctuates.
No, you're so right. And the problem with a goalie like Price, and I mean it's hard to say there's a problem having a goalie like Price because everybody would want Carey Price on their team. But the problem when you have a goalie like that is teams often don't make changes to improve in areas that they need to because those are covered up by Carey Price.
Right, and to continue the analogy that Kevin was making, Carey Price is like an ace pitcher in baseball without run support. And when you have a team that can't score regularly, and if they had added scoring during the off season. I think maybe that would balance things out that where I would have gone Montreal. But their additions were swapping Brandon Pruss for Zach Cassian and signing Alex Semin. Wasn't exactly a banner off season for the Canadians.
No, that's true.
Well, and the other thing about Calgary that I like, as I mentioned before, the younger centers with Monahan and Bennett, but Monahan's got some size too. He's a 6'2" guy who can measure up against those centers in the West. The Getzlaffs of the world and Ryan Kessler. Like when he stands up at the faceoff there, they're not 5 inches taller than him. So they got a lot of positive things. But I think it's a great comparison because that could go either way. If Price has another great season, because goaltending is such a big factor. But and if as I mentioned before, Galchenyuk could step up, that would help as well offensively. Yeah. So Montreal has some depth too. Gallagher is a pesky player that that's in a playoff series. You notice him more than players who are more talented than him.
You really do, and I think all it takes is Galchenyuk getting some time at center and some significant time at center to make him a better player too. I don't know if they're going to get there. Plekanec still has not signed. It's still not extended, so there's that too that's hanging out there. What they're going to do with him as time goes on. So finally, Star Wars or Star Trek, gentlemen? Question: Are we Star Wars versus Star Trek? I'll start with you, Mike.
I've always been a Trekkie. I like Star Wars. I saw the first 3 movies, obviously, as a kid. I haven't seen, other than bits and pieces on cable, the next 3. Mm-hmm. Whereas I saw every Star Trek movie. I watched the original series. I'm not somebody who watched The Next Generation or Deep Space Nine or those shows religiously. It's the original series with Shatner and Nimoy, and then the movies. And I always watched those. I thought the first movie was pretty weak, and then I thought they got pretty good mostly after that, Wrath of Khan going forward. Whereas Star Wars, I liked it, but I wasn't obsessed with it as a lot of people are.
Yeah.
And I can see that obsession rising with the new movie that's coming up pretty soon. The hubbub about it is just, it's palpable. But I'm a Trekkie, so I'll go Star Trek.
Star Trek. Kevin?
Well, I'm old as dirt, so I have to go Star Trek. I grew up with Nimoy and Shatner, and people now have not sort of the younger generation that's now embraced it. They don't realize how controversial would be too strong, but they had some plots that were pushing the envelope in that time period. Whether Shatner would kiss Uhura, for example, and the war. They had one that was an anti-war one as well, where at the end they figured out that they were talking about. The Yangs and Kongs were actually, the Yankees and communists, and it was about the war that was fighting on that we were fighting. They fought that war, and so there was a lot of social relevance to that show, and the cast members on that now we know today. George Takei is an activist, and Nimoy is one of the great. Not only good guys, but characters. So, I have such an affinity for that group that it's hard for me not to say Star Trek, even though I really did enjoy I remember when Star Wars came out thinking, wow, this is a hit, and, the Harrison Ford and Princess Leia and the whole bit. So, I think it's a close call, but I'm going with Star Trek.
I guess I gotta be the dissenting again here, right?
No, you don't have to be the dissenting.
No, I'm going to be. No, I am going to be, because I like Star Trek, but I never quite got past it. At the time it was, I don't know. At the time it was on, I was very young, and it wasn't the kind of thing that I got into later in life, really. So I have to admit that I probably should sit down and watch the old Star Treks to make a fair comparison, because I've seen bits and pieces of a lot of them. I'm sure I've seen many of them. I actually really like the Next Generation Star Trek. a lot. I thought that was really good.
I mean, don't get me wrong. If you're watching the original Star Trek, the fact that the special effects are so bad because it's 1967 through 1969.
Oh yeah. No, there's no question. I mean, that then Star Wars, that's where it just blew everything out of the water, right? So that literally just blew it out of the water. So Star Wars, there's such an iconic thing and so many great characters in Star Wars, and the fact that I did see the other three Star Wars as well, and I actually liked them more than most people did, who ripped them because I thought it was cool to rip them at the time. I think this one will come out and be very widely accepted as good, just because of the trend lately. Like, you know, we live in an era where people seem to get it. Like they did the Avengers and they did it right. You know, they didn't do the Avengers wrong. I don't think they're going to do Star Wars wrong. I think there's enough people who know enough about the whole religion of the thing, you know, now that they'll get it right, and that they'll put something out that just fans love about it. There was a time there when they would redo movies and they would not do it with people who really completely got it, and we'd have these horrible remakes of things. I don't see that happening with the new Star Wars. I think it's going to blow people's away.
Like the Superman reboot.
Yeah, that's a good example. Yeah, you know, that just not getting the whole thing. So, but you know, this in Star Wars, I think they'll get it. So that's my thought. All right, so why don't we go to Kevin? We did talk about let's go to Dowdy and Weber real quick, because while we're there,
sort of finish that off. I had wanted to do that because I thought they were similar defensemen. Obviously, Dowdy has a physical edge to his game, and they're both big, strong guys who are both offensive and defensive. You know, Weber certainly has advantage with that monstrous, dangerous, scary shot of his. And I think he is more intimidating as a physical presence. But saying all that, Dowdy could play that way if it was required, and has played tough. I think, again, his leadership is higher, and I just think he's a better all-around player. And I think the Kings feed more off of Dowdy than the Predators feed off of Weber. I mean, I think Weber is a great player, to be sure, but you know, I thought Roman Josi was better last season. You know, we've had that conversation before, and I thought, you know, and again, that doesn't mean Weber's not an exceptional defenseman. He is, and you know, when Canada goes to war, they want both Weber and Dowdy. But I just think Dowdy is just too important, and I think the players recognize that around the league, and I think he has a presence about him that maybe Weber is lacking.
It's a really interesting one. I'll go next. Let you go third on this one, Mike. I think I'm going to disagree with you on this one. And I picked Dowdy over Duncan Keith, but I'll still take Weber. I still think I think he does have more impact on his team than, as far as leadership goes. And the one thing I will say about Shea Weber that I do wonder about, and I'm kind of arguing against myself here, is the fact that he signed an offer sheet with another team always sort of rubs me the wrong way. Not that matters at the end of the day. I know it's just business, but he did sign an offer sheet with another team. You know, he was that sort of killed a little bit of that magic of Shea Weber to me in Nashville. You know, just from a fan's perspective, like, okay, here he doesn't. You know, he was like so pro Nashville, and I think he's a great guy, and I like Shea Weber a lot. But I think that I don't know, maybe I'm being too naive there or too idealistic, but that sort of got to me. But when I watch them play on the ice, there's no one that directs traffic more than Shea Weber does on defense. He literally is pointing to players all over the ice. He's pointing where guys are. He's pointing out this and that. So he has such a big impact on how the team plays, and I think that's what killed them against Chicago. And I think Chicago just losing Shea Weber was just too much to bear. I mean, even though Josi and Jones and these other guys were still there, Shea just really guides that team and spiritually leads that team, and has for such a long time now, that I think if I had a draft, like if I both were sitting on the table right now, and who do I want to take? I think I got to take Shea Weber, and the intimidation thing is another big factor, of course. Not that Dowdy's not tough, but Weber's tougher, I think, and the shot. Go ahead, Mike.
Well, I mean, it's a little bit unfair, but I have to go Dowdy, and the reason being is that, I mean, when Dowdy won his first Stanley Cup with the Kings were not exactly a prolific offensive team, which is similar to the way Nashville has been, and they won mostly on the strength of Quick and Dowdy playing the way that he plays. Sure. That team won a couple years later with a better offensive team. it would be a much fairer comparison if Shea Weber had played for one team that had the depth and ability that the Kings did in their second Stanley Cup. He has been, I think, held back in Nashville, understandably because it's considered a small market, but the only team that I thought was really competitive was the team that had Ryan Suter and him when they built up that one year, and I think they lost in the second round to, I believe it was Vancouver.
Yep.
Other than that Nashville has never put a team that you could realistically say had a good chance to win a Stanley Cup. Whereas
you don't think this last team had a good chance to win the Stanley Cup?
No, I don't. I mean, I don't think I still do not think that they are deep enough offensively. Their defense is top 2 or 3 in the league.
Yeah.
They have one of the best goaltenders in Pekka Rinne. They don't have the depth of scoring to be able to get through Chicago or St. Louis or Anaheim. And that until they do that, until that David Poyle and recognizes that, I don't think they're going to get through those teams. But they're a good team. But overall, I think Doughty is, he's surrounded by the better team, and I think he's equal or a little better in terms of an overall skill. So I'll go with Doughty.
I mean, they'll never be able to do that. They'll never be able to put that offense together that you're looking for because they just have so much money and time invested in their defense.
Yep, I agree with that. I don't agree that they can't win. I would agree that there are teams that have a better shot. But I think they're on that list of teams that could win because you can win with goaltending and defense. So.
Yeah, I think you can too. Tilt your camera up a little bit, Kev. We're seeing a little too much of your ceiling. Cool. No, it's a great ceiling, but just saying. All right, so Kevin, give us 2 teams.
I'm going to go with the Buffalo-Edmonton debate, which I think will be a fun one. And I think it's a difficult one because the Oilers have had the number 1 picks, and I think Taylor Hall has been waiting to kind of have be surrounded by the talent level, and now he's going to have a great center. And there's a big difference between Connor McDavid and their other number 1s. And I really like the Chiarelli hiring. I think he is a guy that knows the league, and he knows what goes into building a championship team, and I think they're headed in the right direction. Saying all that, I like what Buffalo has done better. Jack, the Evander Kane trade, the things that caused Evander Kane trouble in Winnipeg in terms of his personality are not going to be an issue in Buffalo. And I say that because Winnipeg was on a different plane at the time, and they have different personnel there, and this is going to be a younger group, and he's not going to have trouble, fitting in because the younger group, in my opinion, will be more receptive to him being him. So I think that'll be a good fit. And I like the O'Reilly trade. Now, they have a veteran group, plus they have Jack Eichel, who is, 18 going on 27 in terms of his, maturity as both a human being and a player. So I think that'll fit. And they have, Ristolainen, a good young defenseman, and they've got Georges, who I think is a quality veteran guy, and they went out and got a young goalie. So I like where both of them are at, and I think both of them are on their way. But for the moment, I just think Buffalo is in a little better shape.
Okay, Mike.
I agree. Strangely enough, me being the noted Sabre hater, but but no, the thing is, if you in terms of going quickly, I think Chiarelli is a fine general manager, and I like Todd McClellan as a coach, and I think there's a slight advantage to them over Tim Murray based on experience. Dan Bilesma, we've yet to see how he'll fit with this team. But I like the construct of the Sabres, as Kevin said, up front. They bring in O'Reilly. He takes the heat off of Eichel. O'Reilly will probably be the number 1 center for at least the first part of this year until Eichel sort of gets into the swing of things at the NHL level. Takes the heat off Sam Reinhart, that maybe they could even send him down to the American League for a little while to acclimate himself, although I think he'll probably make the team. They have good support with Molson and Ennis, Evander Kane. I mean, I think that they're deeper and there are less question marks with the Sabres up front, and I think their defense is better. If you look at Edmonton, they signed Andres Sekera for $5.5 million, and we know that he's defensively challenged. They have one of the worst defensive defensemen in the league in Justin Schultz. Oh, he's got a lot of offensive ability. They're probably their best defensive prospect is Darnell Nurse, and he might be a year away. And in goal, Cam Talbot played 2 months really well with the best defense in the NHL defensively in front of him. I don't know if he's a number one goaltender. I think that the goalie that Buffalo brought in, Leonard, I think he has had some opportunity with Ottawa, and every time he either got hurt or they went to Craig Anderson. I think he's going to get a chance in Buffalo, and I like his upside more than Cam Talbot, so I think Buffalo is better overall.
This is really hard. This is hard. Yeah, I mean, I'm listening to both your arguments. I still think I'm going to go with Edmonton. And that's not that you didn't make your arguments well.
If I said blue, you're going to say red.
No, I'm serious. I literally, I'm not just trying to be contrary. I really am not. I just think that I look at last year's Sabres team, wasn't good and wasn't expected to be good and didn't want to be good almost and played. I mean, the players wanted to be good, but they kept trading away guys and da-da-da-da. And last year's Oilers team wasn't good but was trying really hard to be good and kept continuing to play. And this Oilers team for a while has been not good, but has definitely – it's not for a lack of effort or anything. It's been I think there's been a whole lot of crazy circumstances. I think the front office in Edmonton situation was a mess and bigger mess than people realize. And I think that they did the right moves to solidify that. I think that's as big as McDavid in some ways. But then there's just the McDavid factor and all the talent that McDavid now can come in. And I think what it does is you got guys out there like just say you got Nugent Hopkins, you've got Hall, you've got Yakupov. Each one of them has come in with a certain amount of expectations on them because they were such high picks. But now, all that shifts to Connor McDavid, and those guys can just play. Connor McDavid is the guy who can come in and actually take away the haunting expectations of being a first-round overall pick because he's so much higher than a first-round overall pick. And he's actually shifted that energy level. I think will change, and I think those guys will start to excel of not having that same kind of pressure under them. And if that happens, then the Oilers are so very, very talented and very fast. And some of the defense is young, but they have some good guys coming. They've got some good players coming. So I do like Nurse. I think Nurse is ready to play.
I don't think the book is written on all the Edmonton top prospects. Yakupov, Eberle, Hall.
Yeah.
But there is enough to come to.
Draisaitl too. I mean, yeah.
Draisaitl, he only played 40 games last year, and I think he's got room to improve, and you can't really make any kind of determination on him. But Nugent Hopkins, Eberle, Hall, Yakupov had played 2 seasons or more in the NHL. I think people can start to come to conclusions on these players where, with Buffalo, Kane is in a new scenario. Reinhardt's coming in for his rookie year. Eichel's coming out of Boston University. There are unknown factors here,
right.
And I think that there's room to be positive and look forward. Whereas Edmonton, unless Connor McDavid is the cure-all to everything, and he might be, this team could be in trouble again. If he's a normal 18-year-old rookie and has his ups and downs, this team is going to struggle like they have the last few years.
I just can't help but think they're further along than Buffalo, because Buffalo is really just literally starting. This is the beginning. This is the first year that they're really. I mean, they have been going downhill, and Edmonton, even though they have not gotten into the playoffs, they have been signs over the last couple of years of getting better. There have been moments when they played better. There have been situations, and it's not there yet. But I'm not sure Talbot's the answer either. But I don't know. I can't help but think they're further along. If they play each other in a series, what happens, Kevin?
I think Buffalo wins it. I mean, I don't see that Edmonton is further along. I like their long-term potential, but O'Reilly's an established top player, and Evander Kane can be a 30-goal scorer. And Eberle and Hall have done that. I mean, I just think this season Buffalo will be better.
And Kane and O'Reilly are both under 25 years old, so we're talking about them like they're veterans, but they're young players still.
And they've already done it. And Gergensen is just a great secondary performer. Like he's hard to play against. He's a born leader. He's everything you want in a winning player. They have depth there. They have a lot of guys that know what they're doing, and I just think, as I said, I like where both teams are at. I mean, they're going to get better. They both got a great franchise player, but I like Buffalo. I mean, you can actually find people around the NHL who would say, hey, don't be surprised if Buffalo. Now, I don't believe this, but pushes ahead and makes a run at the playoffs. I don't see it, but
it's possible in their division. I mean, that division is possible.
I don't think so. There's the teams are good there. I mean,
they'll have 4 wins against a team 90 miles up the QEW.
That's about it, though, right? I mean, there are good. I don't know. I agree that Buffalo can make a run. I just can't help but think that they. I don't know. It's really tight. I really feel that the Connor McDavid factor is huge compared to everything else, and I think that the Eichel factor is huge as well. But Eichel coming in is not suddenly lift a burden off of players. It's just going to help them. Where McDavid not only helps them, but actually lifts a burden off of players. I think in Edmonton, I think it actually takes away all the stigmatism of you're a first overall pick not working out. You're a first overall pick not working out, and shifts the focus to him and allows those players to actually just start to thrive. That I think is the biggest factor with Connor McDavid, and we'll see how that plays out.
Do you really feel like? I mean, I could see that with Yakupov, but does Taylor Hall? Do people think him as a first round pick?
He's the only one I think that's worked out, but I think the others, I think
people think Nugent Hopkins is a player.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's a player, but he hasn't had the same. He hasn't had the effect that everybody wanted him to have. I think, and he's still. I mean, I think he's definitely a player, and Draisaitl could still be a very good player.
Some first overall picks are not generational talents. I mean,
and that's the difference here. But in Edmonton, and this is Edmonton we're talking about. Okay, these fans are absolutely insane. They are completely on top of their team in every which way. So there's been a lot of pressure on these players coming in there. Each one of them, you're the next first overall to come in here and be a bust. We've heard this. I've heard this over and over again with Edmonton fans. This is the way it's perceived. Whether or not that's fair or not, I don't know. But I think that the perception's there, and now all of that goes to Connor McDavid.
And I don't see any alleviation to that pressure. I think Connor McDavid can handle that pressure. He's handled it the last few years in junior with Canada in the World Juniors.
Yeah.
He's built for this. He's got the talent.
Right, he is built for it, and he is the first one that is. I mean, Taylor Hall was too, but I think but people see Taylor Hall as what is his eventual upside. He could be amazing, or he could just be very, very good. I don't know that they have their first amazing potential here in Connor McDavid, and I think that that's going to trump a lot of things. And there's going to be a love affair with Connor McDavid that's going to just get a lot of the junk off the other players on this team. I think that's I think will really help them in the long run. So last thing before we go, Mike, we'll do yours tomorrow or something.
Okay.
But let's go to Kevin's first. Give us 2 things to compare.
Well, I was going to do TV shows, but the Star Wars and Star Trek were perfect, so I'm going to go with food.
All right.
I'm going to go the Big Mac versus the Whopper with cheese.
Awesome. I love it. Excellent.
The Big Mac versus the Whopper with cheese, and I'm going to have to tell a story.
All right, please do.
As Eklund knows, but I had many, many jobs when I was a kid. I worked in a party store when I was 12 for 60 cents an hour. And I also worked in a cemetery, which you may or may not know.
I did not know that one, no.
Yeah, and I did cemetery maintenance. I did that for 2 years. It was a spring, summer job, and I mowed all the lawns. It was a big cemetery, and of course we had lunch every day, and it was 3 doors down from the Burger King. So we'd get our Whopper with cheese, and we would sit and play cards, me and my buddy, on a tombstone of a man named Wingard. So
this is like the first paragraph of a really good book.
Yeah. So I have fond memories of a hard day, mowing the grass and keeping the cemetery looking great around Memorial Day. I worked at a Catholic cemetery, and the priest would just make sure that it looked spick and span for Memorial Day and that all the veterans had their flags. But when it came lunchtime, we sat down and had a Whopper with cheese. So I've always been a little partial.
Okay.
Whoppers with cheese.
Whopper with cheese. Awesome. Mike?
Well, similarly, next to where I worked in a movie theater for 10 years, and as an usher and then as an assistant manager. And when I was an usher, I would be sent out to the closest fast food place to get coffee or sandwiches or whatever, and it was McDonald's. Loved McDonald's. I loved it ever since I was a kid. I've always preferred the Big Mac to the Whopper. Because the Big Mac, you could never, and I think I mentioned this before, when I order a hamburger, I always order it with something left off of it.
Yes, you did order this, yes.
With the Whopper, it was always without mustard or without ketchup, which they would include it on there. And, eventually, whenever I ordered a Whopper and somebody would make a mistake, I would bite into a hamburger with ketchup and mustard, which I can't stand. With the Big Mac, there is no ketchup, there is no mustard. All there is special sauce, which is Thousand Island dressing. When they make a mistake, it's acceptable, but I always got it without sauce. The Big Mac to me was
the Big Mac without sauce.
Big Mac without sauce.
That doesn't make any sense. That is what a Big Mac is.
Just order 2 hamburgers.
Yeah, I know.
Right, exactly. 2 hamburgers. That's all it is. Without just a lot of this.
The funny thing is, going up to Canada in the last few years, their McDonald's up there have the double Big Mac, which is 4 patties.
Oh, God.
So needless to say, you get a coupon for a free angioplasty
Is there rolls between each of them, or is it just the two?
No. It's 2 patties piled on top of each other.
Okay, so 2 and then a roll and then 2 and then a roll.
Exactly.
Not like roll, meat, roll. I can imagine.
No. I don't think I can get my mouth around that. But no, I'll go with the Big Mac.
Oh my gosh! Wow. Well, first of all, you're both right, but I think that this is in what you like about each of these burgers. I mean, I think that I had a problem as a child and it had nothing to do with it, but I connected it together that I would get a cold after eating a Whopper, and it had nothing to do with it. But there were 4 times in my life when I was younger when I rarely would go to fast food restaurants as a kid, but when I got a Whopper with cheese or without cheese, I would get a cold the next day that would be horrible, that would last like a week. And I don't know, and it just had nothing to do with the burger at all. So I, for a long time, stayed away from Burger King just for some reason, for crazy reasons. I do like the 2 all beef patty, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun, though, however, which has to be one of the best advertising campaigns of all time, still, to this day. The fact that I can name all the ingredients on the Big Mac sandwich.
It takes 2 hands to handle a Whopper?
It does take 2 hands to handle a Whopper. Yeah, I do agree with that. I think the Whopper meat is way better than a Big Mac meat. I think Big Mac meat is just very thin and but special sauce is special sauce, and it's not Thousand Island, by the way. It's not.
I think the fairer comparison is the Whopper to the Quarter Pounder with cheese, but okay.
That's not even close.
No, but the Whopper kills the Quarter Pounder cheese. The Big Mac at least has a special sauce pulled out of its artillery and gives it a chance. That's why without the special sauce, Mike, I don't get it. I don't get why you're going for a Big Mac without special sauce, and it's not just Thousand Island dressing. A long time ago, and I wish I knew where this book was. They got a really great book that basically told you how to make things that you would find in restaurants, and it gave it went and figured out the ingredients to special things. Like it figured out the exact ingredients to the special sauce. It figured out how to make the filling of an Oreo cookie, things like that. It was stuff like that was in this cookbook, and it was really amazing. I mean, it's just like these things that you just really are fantastic, and it's very much different than Thousand Island dressing, but you can actually get it now by itself. Like you can get a side of special sauce now at McDonald's. I don't know if I was there the other day and I saw a big sign saying, "Would you like just a side of special sauce?" I guess maybe to dip your fries in or put on something else. But I know. But I will say and this is a big shift in me because as a kid I was a Big Mac, but I am going to go with a Whopper with cheese now because I think that is if I had a choice now to go to one or the other, I'm going to Burger King. I'm getting a Whopper with cheese, even though the French fries are better at McDonald's. But I still have to say
They are better at McDonald's.
You know that, and that is a big part of the meal.
I would only go to Burger King if I had a buy one get one free coupon.
Although my go-to restaurant of choice for fast food, which we'll end with, because instead of who will win in a best of 7 series, McDonald's or Burger King, we'll end with our go-to fast food restaurant, which for me is Chick-fil-A. By far, Chick-fil-A is the best fast food restaurant I think on the planet. First of all, the iced tea is unbelievably good, and I'm a huge iced tea person. I subsist on iced tea. Iced tea, sweet tea from Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A sandwiches are just amazing. You can't eat 3 of them. They're really, really good. And yeah, so what's your go-to what's your go-to fast food restaurant, Mike?
Well, we don't have Chick-fil-A in Western New York. I mean, would you consider pizza a go?
No.
Okay. Then I would have to go with McDonald's.
McDonald's is your go-to?
Yeah.
Kevin?
Yeah, well, I prefer. We actually have a hamburger joint that I grew up with called Bray's, which is in Westland, and it has a large donkey on top. Used to be on top of the building, and then they actually.
Why? Why would they think that that's a good idea?
But the donkey, everybody loved the donkey, and there's actually a story behind it. So of course there is. So they're tearing down the building, and they're putting up a new building, and they're going to put the donkey, who had been there for 50 years, back on this block. Okay. But by then, the zoning had changed, and the donkey was too large to go that high. So they actually protested, and they got people to petition, but to no avail. So they created a glass house. That they have the donkey in a glass house.
How many metaphors are we talking about here? So, donkeys in glass houses should not throw stones.
Yeah. So when I say to my kids, it's time to go visit the donkey, they know what I'm talking about. That we're going to go get it's a hamburger joint, and it's got the counter with the bar stools and you get in there, and the hamburgers are small, and they've got the onions that are.
So you're like, is this like the White Castle type burger? Is that what we're talking about?
It is, but they're obviously better. But they're caramelized onions and.
Well, that's good. Yes, caramelized
pickles that look like they just became pickles last night. Where they've kind of still got that kind of cucumber look to them.
Crispy.
Yeah. So.
Oh, that's awesome, man! Oh, man! And the moral to that story, of course, is don't build a house until you know how big your ass is. There you go. Remember, guys, without the buzz, it is just hockey. We'll talk to you soon.